to get into it, man, you know. Like a sex machine, man. Moving, doing it, you know. Can I count it off? 1, 2, 3, 4. Turn it up loud, turn it up loud, turn it up loud, turn it up loud. Drop it, stop it with all the soap operas and the soapbox.
Okay.
And you are listening to the Outside Analysis first ever podcast featuring not just me, Ernest James, but David Clary, writer extraordinaire for the Outside Analysis, who's supposed to be putting together some Western Conference NBA preview. I'm not sure if he wants to talk about that, but I'm going to kind of put him on the spot. That's what I do around here.
Yeah. I got a pretty big Western Conference preview. Should be out tomorrow at some point. Pretty excited about it. Just kind of cover the favorites, the dark horses, kind of what's all going down in the Western Conference of NBA. And you're covering the Eastern Conference, right?
That's right. I'm kind of slow dragging, kind of just waiting to see a lot of the things that break down. I mean, it's so much parity in the league this season. It's ridiculous. You know, sure, LeBron James, he went back home. Okay. Kevin Love, he went to Cleveland. I don't hear too many people out there that are saying they are the clear-cut favorites to win the title. That leaves the door wide open for other teams. So just waiting for the final rosters to be decided. And, you know, for instance, J.J. Barrera just got bought out by the Minnesota Timberwolves, which you're familiar with the team. I'm sure you follow the team very closely. J.J. Barrera can be a difference maker for a team, don't you think?
Yeah, I do. I think that was proven when he was on Dallas's team. I remember watching the finals back when Dallas beat the Heat, and just watching some of the things he do, and he was like, you just don't think a guy like that's going to be able to be the difference maker that he is. And the past few years in Minnesota haven't really been weren't a great fit for him. And so I think some of his, I know some of his production dropped, but I think some of the perception of him as a player has gone down quite a bit. But I think he had a pretty nice showing in the international play this offseason. And so I think when a team finds him, the rumor is Dallas is interested again, or he's interested in Dallas. So that might be a nice little pickup.
That would be very scary. You know, you look at the man, and no one honestly thinks NBA superstar. You know, not superstar. I'm sorry. I'm selling him way too high right now. I'm buying high on him a little bit. But no one thinks NBA difference maker. I'll say it that way. And I find it amazing how a player like that, right before the season starts, become available. You know, who knows? Dallas could be in the mix. I wouldn't be surprised if a team like Cleveland, because they're still waiting on Ray Allen to make his decision, although personally I think he should either be a Clipper or Bull. That's just my honest opinion. But just these last final pieces, these last pieces of the puzzle to come in place, it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of the thing is, like you said, Cleveland, that's a team that might have some interest there, because behind Kyrie they have Dellavedova, I'm pretty sure the Australian point guard, and he played decent last year, but it's still kind of a question mark because Kyrie does have a history of injuries, and so the depth behind him is thin. So I know Cleveland's looking to definitely want to be a contender right away, obviously, and so the addition of someone like Barrera, that's something that little firepower off the bench that could be useful.
Looking at that team, and I know you're going to have a lot for us for the Western Conference side. I'm going to get into it for the Eastern Conference side. First off, I forgot to plug the website. It's The Outside Analysis, outsideanalysis.com, part of the Yard Barker Fox Sports Network. You are listening to The Outside Analysis NBA Preview Podcast featuring myself, Ernest James, and David Clary. Like the Facebook page. Like it. It's The Outside Analysis. It's the only one that exists of that kind. Also, follow it on Twitter. Follow us at Outside Analysis. The O and the A are both capitalized. Got some other things coming up. We cover hoops. We cover football. We cover boxing, wrestling, a lot of baseball stuff going on. I know you and myself, we're both hardcore basketball guys. So with the season kicking in, hopefully there'll be a lot of stuff to talk about.
Oh, for sure. This is looking to be one of the best seasons in recent memory. I mean, it's hard to think about that after it seems like each season just gets more exciting. But this one, it's primed to be a good one, I think.
Now, I don't want you to get into too much of your preview, but I know you have your favorites already lined up. I have my favorites lined up. Honestly, coming out of the East, I've narrowed it down to maybe three teams with one dark horse. But in the West, I mean, you got a tough job. You know, you have teams like Phoenix who could honestly, if they catch lightning in a bottle, and let's say Eric Bledsoe didn't get hurt last season, and he can improve from last season to this season, that's going to be a scary team. Teams like Dallas. Go ahead.
Yeah, I completely agree with Phoenix. I think that if they can stay completely healthy, that they're a team that wants to push for a playoff spot. And the only thing in the West is it's who do you drop out. And some people like to point to Portland. Some people like to point to Houston. But those are two teams that I don't see without a injury happening. I can't imagine them dropping out either. But I think if Phoenix can stay healthy, especially with the acquisition of Isaiah Thomas, they're a potential dark horse contender in the Western Conference.
Now, to me, I don't see too many teams dropping out of the picture. You have a couple of teams that, provided an injury, it can totally destroy their season. Just like, you know, I'm a Lakers fan. That's my second favorite team. So I don't necessarily believe that the Lakers are eliminated out of discussion. You know, if Carlos Boozer, Lord knows, if Carlos Boozer has a renaissance season, playing with a healthy Kobe Bryant, I know. I need to be shot for that. But I mean, it's I can't even get it out. I have to do this for a second. Please forgive me. This is what I get for saying something idiotic. For those who are listening live and those who will be listening to the podcast, one of my favorite lines of all time is Dave Chappelle and him saying what? Him doing Little John. One of my favorite lines of all time. Getting back on topic, if Carlos Boozer finds lightning in a bottle and he's the Utah Jazz version of Carlos Boozer and a healthy Kobe Bryant, sure, Steve Nash gone for the season. I wasn't 100% sure he was going to be much of a difference maker anyway. You know, I like Jeremy Lin. I think Jeremy Lin can run a team. I think Jeremy Lin got a raw deal. That's another sleeper team that can just rise right up. Now, you mentioned Portland as one of those teams that can drop down. I think you're hitting on something there, but I'm going to need you to explain why.
Well, kind of like you stated, obviously there's some teams that if an injury was to happen, it would completely devastate them. Two of those teams that instantly come to mind are Houston and Portland to me. I'll touch on Portland now since you asked about that. And I think that the team is so reliant on its offensive ability, and it's a stellar offensive team. Okay. But if they were to get a major injury, whether that be to Lillard or Aldridge, that team gets awfully one-dimensional really fast. And in the West, the defenses are very good, and it's tough to be able to pull it off in the West if you're one-dimensional on offense. Almost no teams are able to get in the playoffs in the West if they're one-dimensional or if they only can focus on one player. I think a clear example of that is even a few years ago when before the Lakers had Powell, back when it was just Kobe, they struggled. I mean, Kobe, that was back when he was just dropped in 30-point games left and right, but they struggled. In the West, you have to be multifaceted for sure. And if Portland wasn't able to do that, they don't have a defense to fall back and rely on. And so that's why I think Portland could be a team to look out for if they have injury issues. And in reality, they still don't have the strongest defense, so that could make it iffy because there's a lot of teams that have firepower in the West.
Well, one of my sleeper guys from that team is Nicholas Batum. He's one of those, he puts me in the mind of a Luol Deng, the guy who doesn't necessarily fill up the stat sheets with one particular skill, but he does a little bit of everything. You need rebounding, he can do a little bit of that. You need scoring, three-point shooting, defense, he can do a little bit of all of that. To me, he's the X factor there, but you're absolutely right when it comes to let Damian Lillard go down for more than a month. That team is done. Same thing goes for LaMarcus Aldridge. Great player. Team can't afford to lose him. One player, though, that I honestly think that gets absolutely no credit whatsoever, and probably deservedly so, Robin Lopez. The amount of protection that he gives to Aldridge is amazing. It allows Aldridge to roam free. It allows him to kind of cheat on defense if he wants to cheat on defense, and it saves him from the inside pounding, bumping, and bruising. So they can ill afford to lose him as well. One of the teams that I agree with you completely on Lopez. Highly underrated player. I mean, he doesn't do much. He's not going to show up and surprise you on the stat sheet or anything. But I think what he brought to that team last year was huge in terms of grittiness. I'm all in the stats and stuff, but he brings the grittiness to that team that can't be replaced easily. To me, he gave them toughness. LaMarcus Aldridge, excuse me, one of the biggest knocks on him was the fact that he wasn't that tough of a player. So you give him some type of bodyguard, so to speak. It gives him confidence and courage. He could go ahead, jump in there for a rebound, and feel as though he's going to come down with it, or his bruising buddy, Lopez, will help him out and open things up for him later on down the line. So to me, it's a perfect basketball marriage. But that's another guy who they can ill afford to lose. I have two teams, thinking of teams that might drop out of the playoff picture if they're not careful. One is a surprise. One can go one way or the other, depending on how the transition goes. I'll go with the surprise team first. And I'm going to cue up my soundbite as I say this. The Oklahoma City Thunder are in trouble if Kevin Durant is done for more than a month and a half. And that's only depending on how Russell Westbrook takes the reins as the leader.
That's a serious question because there's kind of two parties in the NBA right now. There's the ones that think Russell Westbrook is a legitimate superstar in the NBA.
I'm one of
them. And then
them.
there's the party that think that Russell Westbrook is kind of holding back the Thunder with some of the antics and by not allowing Kevin Durant to do the second best player in the NBA sort of thing. And this is kind of the moment that is going to have both sides of that argument holding their breath because this is Russell Westbrook's show now. And if he can, carry the team to a stellar record or keep them in contention, then it kind of proves Russell Westbrook. He is the kind of guy that, you can hand the reins to your team to, and he's going to succeed with it. I think there's some crazy stat out there that a few years, maybe 2 years ago, maybe a year ago, maybe it was just last year, but when Russell Westbrook was on the court without Durant, that team was way in the positive. Like, Westbrook just apparently ran teams out of the building. And it's definitely something to watch because a few years back in the playoffs when Westbrook went down, Durant couldn't carry him to the playoffs. And that's kind of a product of the coach's system and what they rely on. But it's the truth of that team that they rely on those two players so much that if one of them gets hurt, it's serious issues could